Hey everybody, how are you? This is Arthur. Let me focus on myself briefly, but I want to just show you it's a pretty nice day, in spite of the fact that the sunsets are coming upon us much sooner. One of the tests that I often have when I know that the weather is changing considerably is, at what point am I no longer can I wear shorts outside? So that was about Monday this week. It was at that point I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to go for a walk and wear shorts. I have to wear pants now, pretty much every day. It's hit that point now. I mean, it's going to be, that's where we are right now. I just wish that, I almost wish for the warmth that we had, but 100-degree weather is a little too much, but that's just the way it is. This is where we are. Thank you everybody for joining me. One person wears shorts 365. Lucky for some of you, but it's still a little too cold for me at this point. So I went live about, earlier today about 1 p.m. I had attended a workshop or a seminar or a discussion that was at Camino College. And this focused on men of color, insight, and empowerment. One of the things I noticed in the slide presentation was a picture of the black fist. That's a symbol of socialism. That was extremely alarming to me. I don't see how anybody can claim that they'll be empowered by trying to expand a socialist agenda. That actually ends up creating more inequality than it does equality of any kind. So that's a real problem for me. So I'm just kind of going back to that briefly because that's what I had been talking about. All right, so here we are today. Let me take a few steps back, talk about yesterday. I was really happy to go to UCLA that night. People had shown up before I did. Some people were there at about 4 p.m. and they were already kind of getting the playing field ready. I saw some other college students. One of them had a shirt that had a picture of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and they were, making jokes, but they were essentially, making fun of the whole Russia collusion narrative, which has engulfed the media repeatedly. Things really got heated up for me as soon as I saw a stand and it had a picture of Ben Shapiro with his face crossed off and a whole list of the things that he had said. And, I was really surprised that the students were looking for some of the most arbitrary statements that he had made. He might have spoken out of hand or out of turn briefly. To me, it's becoming just insane to what extent the left will go to find any little mistake or off-color remark. And I don't mean like something that's inappropriate, but just like they say something that's maybe a little inarticulate. And they just want to drum down and double down on that individual. Freedom of speech means the freedom to not say everything perfectly. An example that I shared with a lot of students, Barack Obama had talked about the 57 states. That was a mistake, and the media practically ignored it. But when Sarah Palin talked about how she wants to form trade relations with North Korea, the media just pilloried her mercilessly. And that just was really, it just goes to show how vicious the bias is in the press. They went after Sarah Palin with such harshness, and they're doing it to Donald Trump even more. But what's interesting about Trump is that he has just, he has exceeded the media's influence. He's been able to go around them with Twitter, Facebook, and other social media. He essentially sets the tone and the narrative of what's going on in the country, and there's nothing that the media can do about it. So it was a great evening there at UCLA. It was great. My mother went to UCLA. She was there for a year. My sister graduated from UCLA. She was there also as a graduate student. So, and even before all of that, I used to go to the campus and just walk around. It was a nice place to visit. I haven't done that as much. I've been just busy writing and reading. That's taken up more of my time. And then doing active events with a lot of other patriots and and fellow Trump supporters, going to downtown LA or going to city council meetings, fighting against the corruption, fighting to promote what Trump ran on, what Trump is fighting for. A lot of that has taken up a lot of the time. And, I'm doing more of that now, so I don't go to colleges just to visit, just to walk around or to hang out the way that I used to. And From what I was able to see last night, I can see another reason why, too. There's a growing hostility to freedom of speech. Some of the college students I was talking to, they would just curse at me or flip their middle finger in my face. There was no capacity for genuine discussion with some. But I would say, by and large, many of the college students at UCLA were willing to have a meaningful and thorough discussion. I liked what someone had commented about me at the end of the evening. They said, Arthur showed up with a bunch of red pills. In a sense, that's what we've been able to do. I was there with LA Werewolf. They had their cameras there. Antonio Foreman and other members that have worked with him and have worked security detail, they were there to ensure my safety and the safety of others. A quick shout out also to Sean Bann. He was there. John Willis, Gregory Suska, Gary Galino, Grindall61 was also there. Gary, it was brilliant that he would bring up to the students' attention. There's such a love affair they have with socialism or with communism. And yet 3 UCLA basketball players were in China and they committed a crime. They engaged in shoplifting and they were held in, they were locked up and arrested. The president eventually pled for them and was able to get them free. But that was like a wake-up call, for the college students who think that this free market country is just the worst country in the world and is filled with so many abuses. It's really good that, you've got a chance to finally force the students to have some perspective. So that was very important. That was very meaningful. There was a student named Gavino, and I was able to explain to him how violence is more of a propensity with the left than it is with the right. That was a game changer for him. It's very important, by the way, that we stand up to this equivalence narrative, that there's violence on both sides. Most of the violence is with the left. Their ideology is based on violence, imposing government and command control of every major industry in a country. That's an act of force, not an act of persuasion or trade. Any kind of a movement that wants to create radical equality requires force. So this is an inherent aspect of the left, not of the right. What we see on the right is a desire to restrict the state, to enhance and promote individual liberty and individual freedoms. And that to me was an important thing to talk about. Most importantly, though, I was there to promote the president, to promote his agenda, to fight the lies, the mythologies being pushed around about him. I am so fed up with them saying things like the president enacted a Muslim ban. No, he didn't. It was not a Muslim ban. I don't have a problem repeating that enough times for people to get it. I get tired of people calling the president a racist or a xenophobe. It's just not true. These are hollow talking points that a lot of these left-leaning college kids have been taught as a means to silence people. And thank God for Trump. Thank God that he kicked this PC culture in the teeth and put an end to it. That was so important. It was very good to enact, there were the black college students especially. It was great to connect with them, to talk about LBJ and his insidious plot with the Great Society. It was a great scam. A number of times I heard about the big switch, that Democrats were the conservatives and then they all became Republicans, that there was a party switch. Nope, never happened. Democrats have been pushing down minorities since whenever, and Republicans have been on the sides of civil rights ever since their inception. That's the proper narrative. There was no big switch where Republicans, the Democrats then became Republican racist. Never. Republicans have by and large been pushing for policies to help people. At least that's the principles of it. We're seeing the swamp now taking over both sides of the aisle, sadly, and just to see what's happening with Judge Roy Moore, to see how Jeff Flake and John McCain and others are so insistent on resisting the president at every turn for political reasons, not even paying attention to the needs and concerns of their own states. Really bothers me. But that's something I'll touch on a little bit later. UCLA was a success. There were a group of students and they had their signs that said racist, fascist, anti-gay, whatever. It was so powerful to be able to stand up in front of them and confront them and say, why? Why is the president racist? Why am I racist? One of the most outstanding events, and you'll see it on the video. I uploaded it to my new YouTube channel. It's Chris Shopper. So I'm using that now to upload videos. I chased after one of the students, or I kept confronting him. Why are you calling me a white supremacist? Where is the proof for this? Where's the evidence for this? There's nothing. I was talking to black students, Asian students, Hispanic students, other white students. There's just no justification for these hateful labels. We must not allow people to get away with that. We need to hold them accountable. We need to demand that they prove it, demand that they justify these hateful remarks. Don't let them get away with it. And that was successful. We got in the middle of these crowds, and they eventually were forced to disperse. Then we went back to the square outside of Ackerman Union. I stood on the steps. I had my megaphone. We had other people standing there. And, you know, we really had an incredible demonstration there. We talked about Colin Kaepernick. We talked about freedom of speech, NFL, foreign policy, socialism, why it can never work. I talked about the importance of life and family. It really is important to take on this whole transgenderism movement. There are massive problems with trying to make it a civil right. It's turning into an excuse to shut down freedom of speech and freedom of association. It is contrary to the very essence of what civil rights are about. You know, it's a disorder. And I was able to have that argument. One student got upset because I tried to explain, you know, people can't be a gender based on what they're feeling. It's based on biology. And then I asked her, you know, you look like you're 22. Tell me why you are not 60 years old. That's an argument that Ben Shapiro had used. She called me out on that as if it was something wrong. And I said, there's nothing wrong with my making that point. It's to illustrate that we can't define ourselves, our identities, the realities about ourselves based on our feelings. Facts are not fungible, are not open for debate. That's what makes them facts. It's not about feelings. So that was a really good moment right there. I saw Greg Suska. He wore the American flag with pride. John Willis was there to help out. Sean, Antonio were there to help me too. There were lots of people. Big Delaska show up. He's back out in the game, fighting again. I am so angry and frustrated when people keep smearing my fellow Trump supporters and conservatives, labeling them racist or Nazis or whatever. I mean, it's just beyond unthinkable. And it's so important that we remind them that Nazi, KKK, communistic movements, these have been left-wing movements. I called out the whole alt-right nonsense. Alternative right. That makes it left-wing. It's obsessed with race. It's obsessed with using power to impose their views. It's an atheistic movement that's about trying to create some kind of a perfect or idealized race. And that's wrong. These discussions are not acceptable. These movements are undermining what this great country is founded on. We need to be able to stand true and strong for that. So I went to UCLA. I arranged to go to an event at El Camino College. I live in Torrance, so El Camino is nearby. I went there. I thought I was going to hear a speaker talking about how, you know, men of color are oppressed or they're put behind the eight ball because of our systemically racist society. You know, and I went there and I realized that this was kind of like, this is like a lunchtime event, you know, that takes place. And I'm going to turn the light on. Okay, that's a little better. So it was mostly, this was a group that, you know, that met together at as a lunchtime event, and the students were going to be sitting there and talking to each other about what's it like to be a man or a male in a culture where, you know, when you're a man of color. And it's like, you know, this isn't what I was expecting. I took a few photos. They're on my Facebook profile, you know, talking about insight in empowering men of color. And there was a picture of that socialist fist. Very disturbing. Socialism does not empower anybody. It cripples and impoverishes everybody, unless you're in that very unique and limited political class that is trying to make the world better for everyone else. The people who end up being in charge in these socialist governments, they get all the money. They are very much in that top 0.01%. They're all government-connected cronies, stealing from everybody else. That's what socialism ends up becoming. So, you know, I was hoping to have that discussion. I was the only one there. The moderators or the leaders of the group had told me, you know, you can't record because people are going to be sharing some very intimate and personal things. And I go, well, there's no point being here. I'm not going to talk about myself as being oppressed in any way, shape, or form based on my skin color, even if there's discrimination or racism against me or others based on skin color. That cannot keep you down. I had that discussion many times at UCLA yesterday. I wanted to bring that issue to people's attention today. But when I saw how the meeting was designed or was going to be, how it was going to be directed, I realized that this is probably not the best use of my time. But I took a few pictures. I took a picture of that socialist black power or black fist, and then I walked out. And part of the reason why I wanted to go live after that event, I am so fed up with people playing the victim card, claiming that this is a society that is riddled with systemic racism, that if you are black or Hispanic, that you can't make it just because you're black or Hispanic. That's just a lie. Starting with the fact that there are just 3 clear choices that individuals have to make in order to stay out of poverty, which is don't have kids until you're married, get an education, high school education minimum, and get a job. Have a job. It doesn't have to be an expensive job, or you start low and you work your way up. Have a career where you're drawing an income by doing what you're doing, and you'll be out of poverty 96% of the time. Systemic racism does not lead to black women having children. It's welfareism, or taking advantage of popping out kids and getting paid to do it. That's a choice. The same thing is true. There are Hispanic activists, and they're popping out kids, but they're not married. That's a choice that they make. It isn't systemic racism that leads adults to have children and not be married. When it comes to getting an education, even if the schools in the neighborhood are impoverished and poorly run, there are so many resources available. I met one Hispanic Trump supporter. He lives in Compton. He has gotten such an education on YouTube, in spite of all the tricks and traps that YouTube is playing to silence, discredit, or shut down conservatives and constitutional sentiment. It's not working. There are too many channels. There are too many of us that are able to use these media platforms, and we cannot be silenced. And now there's the lawsuits that are going forward. First from Roger Stone, and also from, sorry, the light went off. I'm not sure what's, Okay, let's see if that helps. Thanks for being patient with me, everybody. So, I'm fed up with hearing people go on about systemic racism. I go to the college, I see Hispanic, black, Asian students. You want to talk about who's discriminated against? It's Asian students. They have to get a much higher, SAT score. They have to have much higher credentials so that they are able to get the same opportunities, whereas black or Hispanic students are just by and large are painted with such a broad brush, and they're allowed to have lower standards and meet lower expectations. That's what's been in place for so long in many colleges. That is wrong. That is not helping anybody. And then people want to make the argument, well, black communities or Hispanic communities have been underserved or underprivileged because of the urban ghettoization or whatever. These are terrible political or government policies that have been instituted by the Democrats in these urban areas. And yet, even in spite of all of this, whether it's Jim Crow or this ghettoization that's been enacted in these urban areas, no American ever has to feel that they're so behind the 8 ball that they can't make it. You can look at, even in Cudahy, there's Jack Guerrero, for example. He was born and raised in Cudahy, and in spite of what many would consider a very difficult set of environmental factors, he's doing very well. People can say the same thing about other Democrats. There's a guy named Valentin Amesquita. Even those other corrupt council members, they're sitting on city council seats. These are efforts, these are outcomes which don't happen out of nothing. The mindset, the acumen to connect with people and make decisions, this doesn't happen out of nowhere. Not only that, but many entrepreneurs, many small business owners of all backgrounds, they don't go into businesses because they have a bachelor's degree in the subject. They go into a business because they see a need and want to meet it. Many business owners learn and develop these incredible skills through the very practice of opening the business. Human potential is far greater than what academics and elites claim. And these opportunities exist for all races. There's no genetic element. There's an argument by some that, IQ and race somehow correlate. No, they do not. IQ, if we're talking about the effects of biology on intelligence, I mean, the human being is the human being is the human being. Genetic differences, the amount of melanin in your skin or what the facial features look like, that's not going to affect intelligence. So I don't accept that argument at all. I really think we've got to work really hard and fight against that narrative. That there's systemic racism in this country, that there is just an oppression that is at work everywhere. You have students complaining about this country, but they don't say anything about China, where those 3 UCLA basketball players were locked up, for shoplifting. No rights, no due process, nothing. I think they were unpleasantly surprised to see that there'd be such a crackdown. There wouldn't be any kind of privilege or pity shown to them. We really need to stand up to this. We've got to go to these colleges. We've got to start confronting the indoctrination that these kids have been taught. And I think we can do it. It's not that hard. We show them that we care, and then they're going to care that what we have to show them. It's as basic as that. So those are a couple of things that I just wanted to get out of my system. I just am so fed up with this argument. You know, black students are saying, I can't make it in life. If you're going to buy into that narrative, if you're going to buy into being a victim when you're not, I give them a whole bunch of stories of how government enacted discrimination to try to keep minorities or certain groups down often fails. I mentioned how in Malaysia there's discrimination against Chinese or pro-Malaysian affirmative action, but Chinese communities are still able to thrive. This was true for Jewish communities in many countries in spite of strict anti-Semitic laws or even the pogroms that would be enacted from time to time. You know, there is something that seems to happen. It's like God's special blessings really tend to rain on individuals when they're persecuted. You just can't keep good, hardworking character down. Booker T. Washington was a sharecropper's kid, and he routinely endured discrimination. That didn't stop him from becoming an excellent speaker, orator, entrepreneur, advisor to presidents. Frederick Douglass had said before, shortly after the Civil War, let the black man stand on his own. If he falls, let him fall, but let him stand on his own. And many black men did. Black families were were stronger than white families up until the Second World War and afterwards. They were more intact than white families were. You know, black unemployment among minorities was actually, unemployment among blacks was lower up into the 60s than it was for whites. These are things that need to be taken into account. Really quickly, a lot of you have got some comments here, so let me see. Students at UCLA were complaining. Yeah, there were students that were protesting against Ben Shapiro speaking there. One of the students had said to me, he shouldn't speak here because he's stupid. And I pressed him on that a number of times. Why is he stupid? Couldn't give me an answer. Could not answer me. It was just this mindless, wild groupthink. That's all that was there. Very disturbing in my view. Kids need to be able to think. These young people need to be able to think, and they're being told what to think, not how to think. That's wrong. A guy named Jeffrey says, you have pumped me up. Gotta run in my city. Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for the shout out. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your patience, everybody. I'm just looking over these comments. I might miss one of them. I apologize. Ghettos, all done by Democrats. Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I'm really glad again for the security detail that was provided by professionals like Antonio Foreman. That kind of thing, I didn't realize how important that's becoming. You know, just a lot of people surround you and crowd you in, and it could get pretty dangerous if you're not careful. You know, people get easily hurt, and then there's an exchange of blows, and bad things happen. But there were also UCLA staffers trying to make sure that people could pass through, and that was a good sign. They did a much better job than Berkeley, than the city of Berkeley, that's for sure. So I was really happy about that. So those are a couple of things I want to talk about. We need to challenge these false narratives that college students, just because they're of color, they're oppressed just because they're of color. This white supremacy stuff. Oh my God, I'm so fed up with that. You know, and now they've had to adjust the argument to white supremacy is not just about being white. It's an ideology, not just a skin color. I am so committed to challenging that garbage, and I will go to every length to do it. I'm fed up with it, dude. White privilege, nonsense. Those three decisions you make. Don't have kids till you're married, have a job, get a job, and get an education, high school education. You know, those are 3 steps to take, and you can go anywhere. Nothing can stop you. I am so fed up. We've really just got to fight against that. Fight against that. Don't let people make those excuses. I'm a victim of a system. You do not have to be defined by the system if you stop seeing this system that's been put in your face. This Marxist nonsense. Teaching this conflict theory that everything's a matter of struggle. No. Someone mentions, Amy mentions, did all 3, Arthur? There you go. It is very easy to avoid poverty. It really is. There is nothing that's keeping you down except your choices. It really is. And being informed, this is the next part we're seeing. College students being informed to see themselves as victims. That has to be challenged. Okay, so those are the comments there. I've got about 5-6 minutes left here, so let me wrap up. First of all, I hear a lot of rumblings. I'm going to switch topics here. There's a lot of complaints about Jeff Sessions, and after what I saw in the judiciary hearing today between Jim Jordan and Jeff Sessions, there is more concern than ever. I understand there's a lot of things that Sessions may be investigating, but He needs to step it up. I respect the frustration people are having. I understand now. We need an active attorney general that's going to prosecute all this corruption. We need an active attorney general that's going to really double down on these sanctuary cities. And it seems to me that Sessions has got too much gentility right now, or he's got to kick it into gear. Or if there's something going on in the background that we don't know about and we will wait to see, that's fine. But our patience really should be wearing thin by now. It's time to move on. It's time to move on with that. Someone asked, why do you think Jeff Sessions isn't doing anything? We see a growing amount of evidence of corruption, the Uranium One scandal, for example. And then Sessions says there isn't enough evidence to support a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and the Clinton Foundation. I think that's true. We saw with Comey that he was writing a letter to exonerate Hillary Clinton before the end of the investigation. That's a problem as well. Clinton Cash, Uranium One, these are issues. Other people are making great points about, the attacks on freedom of speech by Google, YouTube, and these other massive social media platforms. This needs to be addressed. We need the Attorney General to step up on this. The travel ban, we see that all the attempts to stop it are getting shut down, but sanctuary cities, we need to see an expedited legal process that will allow the federal government to cut funding to the sanctuary cities. And it just seems to me that Jeff Sessions is a little too low-key and isn't active enough. We need more of that. Last of all, for me, the jury isn't out. What I'm seeing going on in Alabama against Judge Roy is just a massive smear campaign. I've looked at the evidence going on with the first accuser and then the other accuser, and there's just, the evidence there is too specious to be taken seriously. I'm very angry. I'm just so frustrated that the Washington Post drops this massive hit piece. There's already problems with it, and you got all these Republicans in Washington just running to the hills. They're so terrified. This is wrong. You got to have evidence. Okay. Allegations of sexual misconduct must be taken seriously. I will never challenge that. Never. Okay, but you got to follow the principles just like they're laid out in the book of Leviticus. You see leadership principles there. When someone makes an allegation about somebody, you do take it seriously, but you investigate before making a judgment. You investigate thoroughly before making a judgment. In the Bible, the priest would look at somebody who was accused of having leprosy. They look at it, and if there's a little blotch, wash it, come back in 7 days. If the blotch gets larger, for whatever reason, then the priest will say, wash again, come back in 7 days. Shave your hair, whatever. Then the third time, if the leprosy has spread, then the priest declares the person unclean. You see, there's a thorough process here. And what we see with the media is that they immediately release a hit piece, and then all of the problems start to emerge. For example, that Beverly Nelson lady, she makes all these claims. She even shows a picture of a yearbook, right? And then says, look, there's a signature from Roy Moore that shows that we had a relationship. No, it doesn't in itself. And second of all, you look at the numbers, 1977 written at one point, and then you see the judge's signature, supposedly. It doesn't match up. The way the numbers are written do not match up. It's just evident looking at it. We're seeing a coordinated effort to smear Judge Roy. And to have Republicans in Washington just jumping ship saying, can't support this guy, don't trust this guy, it just really bothers me. It just bothers me that the press drops something sensational and then they all fall for it. Donald Trump weathered an immense number of allegations of sexual impropriety and misconduct, and they were all debunked. All of them. But the fact is that people don't learn courage just by seeing someone else. Courage is a gift that we see as we receive the gift of righteousness. This is why we really need to fight to reassert the Judeo-Christian ethic that this country is based upon. It is so important. So that's where I stand on that. Full disclosure, if there's a blue dress with a stain on it and Judge Roy Moore is all over it, then he's got to go. I'm not going to give anybody a pass just because he's a Republican. I agree with that concern too. Justice, equity, and truth should not be a matter of partisanship. So those are my thoughts there. I wanted to bring all that to your attention. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, sharing, reading, whatever. Again, I rely on your help to continue to do what I'm doing. I have provided my PayPal and my link to donate. Please do that. As you know, I'm in the process. I have to buy a new car. I've been able to rent a car. I need to be able to get a car myself. I have to raise a considerable sum of money in order to get a quality car, even as a used one. Whatever help you can do, whatever you can donate, I really appreciate it. I won't hold back. People pressured me. You need to ask. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Last of all, thanks for following along with me yesterday. I hope you enjoyed what you saw, heard, and witnessed there at UCLA. Antonio is fired up, and so am I. We're going to go to colleges. We're going to confront the snowflakes. We're going to confront the cultural Marxism. Let's make colleges great again. Let's make free speech great again. Let us make America great again. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful night.